Paris recently for a Puma pop-up, and this kid was interviewing me, and at the end of it, he was like, "Hey man, like, you think you could share just any kind of lesson or gym for me?" And then as I started to share some perspective with him, he looked down at his phone and he was like, "Oh my God, I haven't been recording." And I go, "There goes your lesson right there."
Nah, absolutely. I've been there way too many times. I don't even I just want you to know, this is dope. Like, I recently just saw my homie Junebug was in your commercial, and I was like,
"Oh, you know Amani?"
Yeah, we from the same area.
Okay.
Yeah, and I was like, "Damn, you're really tapped in." Like, I had a conversation with him, and he was like, "Yeah, bro, he remembered me," and he reached out, and I was like, "Damn, he's really tapped into what's going on."
Yeah, I saw Amani for the first time when he was what's dude's name? Jay Versace, when he was with Jay Versace, just doing video. What were they, Vines? I don't know what time period it was, but they did this one called the Feel Good Challenge. And
yeah.
With that song, as long as you keep your head.
Yeah. They was in the street with it. I think that's the one.
Yeah, and it just felt good. And it was just during a period of time where I think maybe I needed some pep. And he would just get it. And he was always getting it in some boots that looked like they were too big for him and they were untied. But he was still hitting it though. And he was wearing a winter jacket in the springtime. So he always stood out. He's got a giant Colgate smile. So he's a forgettable human. And then yeah, I'm a big believer in reaching out to energies I see on the internet that align and I think that could work with the stories that I'm trying to tell. And he definitely was one of them. And I also think he appeals just because he's seemingly untapped. I think I was joking with him on set. I think he has it. I feel like he has, not that I'm the decider of who has star power or anything, but just as an audience member, I think he's got some star power. He's got that. He's got it. Yeah.
Nah, most def. I mean, before I even get into this whole thing and going straight into the interview portion, I do just want to ask though, how you been? Because I have been watching your stories. It seems like you're bouncing from each state to different countries. So how are you been with the whole release of the Pumas and the book and how's everything going?
Yeah, I just remember when I got my gig at Versace, that was during a period of time, and I promise you this has context. That was at a period of time where I just needed a paycheck. I just needed money. I just needed to be able to pay rent. And so whenever I tell that story of how I got that job, people are like, "Wow, you really took your future into your own hands and designed your path and all the shit." And to some extent, I think I did do that, but really, I was just head down trying to get the job done so that I could get a paycheck, right? So it's been valuable to look back on that period of time with a different perspective of I was doing this and I was adapting to my environment. But at that time, it was really about putting my head down and getting to work. So at this period right now, it's very much so about putting my head down because I'm somewhat transitioning in regards to being a collaboration designer, which I still will continue to be, but now I'm going to be a proper owner of a brand. And that's going to be a way larger responsibility than any one that I've had in the past. And so I'm very much so in a head down moment of my career of just working. And then maybe 5 years from now, I could be like, "Oh man, I was scared, but I was motivated," which both are true. But I don't know if I could truly analyze what's happening in real time because I got to get to work. There's no time.
Nah, relatable. Understand. All right, cool. All right, what's going on, man? It's your boy Kloth, and I'm back with another video, man. Looking for my starting somewhere. I am not going nowhere, and this is gonna be another segment of Kloth Talk. Now, again, Kloth Talk is just where I grab the article titles from Hypebeast and Complex, and it's all talking about sneakers, fashion, all that jazz that I love talking about, and I bring people on who have those same passions. I'm going to just say it off the rip. This is going to be one of them episodes. I know, even though I'm the person editing this video, I'm going to be the person rewatching this video because I know sometimes when I'm interviewing people, I forget that I'm the host. I'm soaking up the game. I'm damn, I'm just paying attention. I'm wait, I actually have to get back in. this is somebody who I've been saying on record for 4 years is changing the sneaker game. On record. I remember the first pair of Salehis I got. And I just think following your career, somebody who's worked their way from Payless all the way up to Versace, started your own brand, started working with brands such as New Balance, Crocs, and all that. I just think it's a very inspirational story, even though you just said you're like, you don't really, like, you keep your head down, you keep going. You're not too focused on like that future sense, more about what's happening in the now. But man, we have none other than Salehe Bembury. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing great. Thank you for pronouncing my name correctly. We were just speaking rather casually, and then you just snapped into host mode. So that transition was cool to see. And then, yeah, what we are in the midst of is two things happening simultaneously. I am launching a footwear brand, which we're really not going to be speaking about much today. And then I am also launching a book, which is a 15-year retrospective of my career. And while I am someone that is usually head down working and don't really do too many podcasts or conversations, I think now is a very appropriate time for me to bust out of my creative shell, if you will, and have some conversations and touch some different audiences and share my perspective. And so within this, you know what's actually funny is, and this maybe speaks to the evolution of like maybe achieving some level of notoriety or being recognized, is I remember you, right?
Oh, that's great.
So I remember you. Not only do I remember you, but I want to apologize. So fame is an interesting thing, right? Being recognized by strangers is an interesting thing that should always initially be appreciated, but it's also a very weird thing when like we're all just human, and to have strangers all of a sudden knocking on your door digitally or whatever is uncomfortable. And I remember at the very beginning of this being noticed by people, you would hit me frequently, right? And what was probably simply support, I was misunderstanding as like, who's this stranger trying to fuck with me, right? Not fuck with me, but it just felt excessive, right? And it probably wasn't, because now I've seen way worse, and I've gotten used to, I guess, this role that I've unintentionally assumed. So one, I want to say I remember you. Two, I want to thank you for the support back then, now, and whenever, until whenever. And then third, I want to apologize, because I don't think at that point in this journey that I've been on, I was used to having strangers hit me up. And for the audience, to give context, I think I hit you and I was like, fam, stop hitting me up. Right? And I stood behind that at the time, because I just didn't like this stranger. I'm like a private person. It was just too much like external energy. But I guess I also didn't realize what I had signed up for, or well, maybe not signed up for, but what I was on the like path to achieving. So all of those things, I remember, thank you, and apologies.
Nah, you all good, bro. I think at that time it was during the pandemic, so everyone was kind of like on their phones consistently. But you had made a product. And I don't say this often when it comes to like sneakers, but you had dropped a product, and I said, I don't care what the resale price is, because I didn't hit retail. I was like, I don't care what the resale value is, I'm going to buy those shoes. And I never really get that feeling about sneakers. Actually, from the point of 2022 to 2023, I stopped buying sneakers completely. Mm-hmm. So like, I just remember how like that feeling that I felt when I saw those shoes initially. I was like, this dude is changing the game right now. So that's funny that you say that. So just to kick it off, really, so you have a book coming out, and it's titled I Make Shoes.
Yes.
And I really just want to like, because you're not somebody that is on podcasts. I think the only one that's like the most noticeable, or like the one that I can call back to, is Joe Budden's podcast. Yeah. And that was a while ago. So like you don't really do too many podcasts. So I just want to like, for an audience that may not know who you are, which that's crazy that they don't, if they're into sneakers, like where does it all kind of start for you? Like back then, I always like to ask people like, what was that one sneaker that kind of just made you be like, wow, this is like the thing I want to do?
I'm not sure if it was one sneaker. I think it was really, I almost want to give credit to the marketing, right? Because sneakers they evoke an emotional reaction when seeing them. But then it was a lot of those commercials and campaigns and moments that made the sneakers feel magical, if I had to really think back on it honestly. So, you know, I don't want to give credit to any brand, but I will say that there were just a lot of brands back then that were putting a lot of thought and intention into the storytelling and the placement and the positioning of the product. And then in turn, when you got that product, and I'm sure there was a part of the fantasy had to do with simply just being a child, but when you got that product, it felt magical. I remember getting some like Reebok Kamikazes, like some Kemps, and just because of, you know, what Sean Kemp was like on the Sonics and as a player, getting those. I mean, it was a beautiful shoe, but strangely, it was like more like it was kind of like Pulp Fiction, you know, glowing gold light shit. Like it was like as soon as you open the box, it was like. So yeah, just, you know, I don't know if I could give credit to a specific shoe, but just really more the concept of a product creating a feeling.
Oh, okay. I think something else that, like, now that you say that, ad that like really captured my attention when I was a kid, the Penny Hardaway's commercials back then. Wow. Like they're like in the, like, I don't know what avenue of my brain that it's in, but like I vividly remember those commercials. But the Kamikazes though, and people shit on me because I like the Kamikazes and I love the Kamikazes.
But that's, I mean, I was just talking to someone about this recently, is that how now sneaker culture has turned into this thing where people will shit on you because you like a shoe. Like, I feel like the sneaker generation I'm a part of, you almost got like bigged up because you liked it. You had your own like style and personality. And now that's lost in sneaker culture, and it's unfortunate. Now it feels like to be considered a sneaker culture participant, you have to have what's quote unquote heat or like rare or hype. And I come from a time where if someone was wearing some crazy shit, like that was just them. And that was what they were bringing to the table. I wish that would come back. Because I even just saw, what's that dude's name? Jacques Slade. He just had a video come out where people were basically had something to say about the fact that white Jordan cements were in like, where was it? In like was it on sale or what was it? It was like,
how they're just sitting on like on the shelves.
Yeah, they were like sitting on the shelves, and it was like you could get them at like below retail or something like that. And then he said he had an interesting point. I'm not going to quote him well at all, but basically he was saying that we're so conditioned as like a culture that we think that struggle and high prices have to be a part of the sneaker acquisition. And when in actuality, it's like a great iconic sneaker at a accessible price. So you would think that the average consumer would be happy about that, but instead they're like, no, like spank me again, you know, master. You know what I mean? Like, and it's a really fucked up relationship that I think the culture has with shoes. And so, and it's partially that perspective has had me want to transition, not completely out of hype, but transition into a space of simply commerce and making, you know, just sound product, because I feel like I'm witnessing the death of hype a little bit across all platforms. And it's interesting. It just feels like there's a shift in interest, and the consumer is way more educated than they have ever been. So now they're looking for quality and storytelling than they are exclusivity and scarcity. And so, you know, I think it's important to evolve, because there's this quote that says you either go with time or you go with time. And so I'm interested in the latter, and this brand that I am birthing is a representation of that.
Nah, for real. I think even just like what you said about stuff sitting on the shelves, like when I was growing up, that would be a come up. I wouldn't want to pay resale price for anything.
Exactly. And now almost it's the opposite. People want to know that you struggled, you camped out, you know, and then you almost got them, and then you got them the next day. And now it's like, wow, like you really care. But before it was like, just simply like, I like these because they make me feel good. I got them on the cheap at Salvation Army or something. You know, those days are over, but it's just a shame. I think that maybe with social media comes like the dissolve of individualism, and so people are just like moving with the same motion. I don't know.
Yeah. Before I move on to the next segment, though, I'm just having a lot of, you know, some of your products and seeing what you release and like how you storytell. Like, I'm very interested. Like, what was your upbringing like? Like, did you have very creative parents or like a friend group, or like what was really like the driving force for the creativity? Because like looking at it now, I'm like, you're doing some of the most, I don't like, it's a bad term, but ridiculous. Like I'm like, whenever I look at a product, I'm like, what am I looking at? So I'm interested in how you grew up.
Well, I grew up in Tribeca. My dad is a photographer, so it was definitely in Tribeca back then was an artist neighborhood. So like a lot of those lofts were painters and sculptors. And so I was definitely, and then Soho's like a few blocks away. So I was definitely in a ecosystem of color and creativity and self-expression. So maybe that's where the seed was planted. And then I think, you know, just being a student of the sneaker culture, of marketing, being a student of marketing and not even know I was being a student of marketing, more so just being a kid, like eating cereal on the carpet, watching the commercial and being like, oh, shit, like I can dunk now too. Like, but again, that's, you know, a result of marketing. And so now I just believe that all of these things that I've gotten to work on are opportunities. And from the shoe to the packaging to the campaign to how it's rolled out to all of those things, those are opportunities to express creativity, to express brand, and I don't want to miss those opportunities. And so whereas some collaborators might just make the shoe and then put it in the box and call it a day, I remember what it felt like to get like a certain type of box and be like, wow, like I was impressed before I even opened the box, you know, and then it's the tissue paper and it's like, what does that message say on the card? And yeah, just from experiencing it for like probably 2 decades, let's call it. I don't want to say it became easy to make my own version of it, but I just remember what those things felt like. So you bringing up Lil Penny or even like Spike Lee or whoever, like those things left us with a feeling. And so now that's what I'm trying to do, is leave people with a feeling. And then furthermore, humor is a great vehicle to leave people with a feeling, because a lot of people don't get to laugh frequently throughout the day. I'm laughing all throughout the day, but a lot of people don't get to laugh, right? So to just give someone a second of like, you know, everything dissolves and they just get to giggle real quick, I think that's valuable. And now that giggle in that moment is associated to the brand, the shoe, collaboration, or myself. And I think that's just great for community building.
Yeah. And I like what you said about like tying it to just that feeling of being a kid and like enjoying those ads and seeing those things. And like you said, it necessarily comes easy to you now because like you remember how it felt to be on the opposite end of it. So I like the way you tied that in together, just because like I feel like, and this isn't a slight to anybody else that's in the game right now, but I feel like sneakers got kind of like watered down because so many people were entering it that didn't have a passion for it. Mm-hmm. And like sometimes when it comes to like collabs or like certain shoes that come out, I can like as a consumer, I can feel when it's like, oh, this is a cash grab. That's what that is. That's a name slap. It's not really about the product itself. It's about how can we make some quick cash for it.
And that you noticing that or identifying that is representative of the consumer being way more educated than they were. And I remember coming up in sneakers, for any brand or store or person to get a collaboration was a huge fucking deal. It was an honor. It was representative of that brand identifying that you were a leader in your space and that you deserved a shoe. And it was almost like a flag, like a kind of like a flagpole in the sand of like, you are official now, you are stamped. And now anyone can get a collaboration. I actually just said in this other podcast an example, and I don't want to keep bringing that up as an example because it'll feel like I'm like taking shots, but like, maybe let's bleep it. So just, can we bleep it?
Yeah.
Okay. So like, this company like called, they just recently like got a sneaker collaboration. And to me, that's fucking ridiculous. And it reminds me of the Kanye line of like, you know, I love Lady Gaga, but what the fuck does she know about it? You know what I mean? And so the same thing, it's like, I'm sure they make a very good product for what they make. And I'm sure they even, you know, because maybe they're the top in the bleep. I'll stop saying bleep. You get it now. You know, they're the top in the game, and so maybe they do deserve a shoe. But it's just like a true student and like someone that just honors this shit. To see that feels like a cash grab, and it feels temporary, and it just doesn't. I don't know. And I feel like the floodgates have been opened up so much that for people that really care and really, have longevity in this space, like sometimes maybe what they're doing gets watered down simply because the audience is getting hit over the head with so much, which makes that marketing effort so much more important. Like you hold a shoe in your hand and expect people to buy it. Like you have to do more. You have to invite them into your world, which is actually a great transition to what we just did at the Halley Mart, because that's exactly what we did. But I'll let you do the questions. My bad.
No, you all good. And I think also just as I get older, like if I'm not buying into like the story that much, I always say like it's the shoe. Of course, people are gonna rock the shoe, so the shoe is the most important thing. But like if I'm not buying into a story or like some unique aspect of it, most of the time I'm just like, oh, that was cool, and I'm gonna swipe past it and keep going. Like I'm not buying and consuming so many sneakers now. I'm very particular about the sneakers that I want and that I pay attention to, because there are so many people getting collabs for sure.
Yeah. So, and I don't know. Part of me with that perspective, I feel like I'm like I sound like a hater because I think anyone that gets an opportunity deserves it. But we just do live in this time now where shit is just so like microwave culture. It's so instant, and you forget it. You forget the things that have happened. Remember that Watachi Wa Sta song? Doesn't it feel like that shit was like mad long ago?
Yeah. I don't know.
Fast.
I feel like we moved into like once 2020 happened, I feel like we entered through a different portal and like we're just living in shambles right now.
Exactly. So I'm just, if anything, just trying to grab people's attention and make them feel something because it's difficult.
Yeah. I think this is a great time to kind of make like a shift too, because this book that you have coming out, I'm sure we're going to touch on some of like the career positions that you've had in your lifetime. And I'm interested because like at so many points I didn't know in my own life prior to even like me being very into sneakers. I've always been into it, but it was never like a major thing until I graduated college. But like at so many different points in my life, I was like, wait, he worked there? I used to shop there a lot. Oh, he worked for this brand? I used to buy those shoes a lot. So I kind of just want to go through, walk us through some of the career choices that you've had and kind of just, because we live in a time where people are also, jobs are scarce and people don't really see the opportunity that they may have in front of them. So you worked at Payless before, right?
Yes. Oh, sorry, go for it.
No, so I was just going to say, like, can you touch on like how and what you learned while working for a company that people might deem like, oh, you worked at Payless? Like what? That's Payless.
Yeah. So graduating college, the dream was to like work at Nike. I'm sure I applied so many times in my life. I don't know exactly when I applied, but I most likely applied then. But it was simply like, now I'm on my own. I need a paycheck. I need to be able to pay rent and buy food. It wasn't about anything glamorous or anything like shiny that I've achieved like later in my career. The thing I remember so vividly was just being in whatever like apartment I was in at the time and hitting people up on Craigslist and LinkedIn and just whatever job hunting site I could. And then just staring at the Google thing with the number and the parentheses. And I was just hoping that 0 turned to 1. I've said this a few times, but that was the foundation right there. That was the beginning, was just hoping that 0 turned to a 1, hoping that I got an email back. And it wasn't even hoping that I got an email that said yes. I wasn't even like hoping for that much. I was just hoping for an email, and then that felt like a step forward. And all of these different things I've achieved in my career have kind of just felt like just chess moves a little bit forward towards a goal that I didn't know I was maybe chasing. And so Payless made that 0 go to a 1, and that was a job. And at that point in my career, like it wasn't about even really the paycheck or the amount of money. It was the fact that just there was a paycheck at all. And then also just simply learning how to exist in an office space, in a professional space. Now we live in this work from home world, but I think it still exists. I guess I've been working independently for so long, I don't know, but the traditional office space, wearing khakis, lunchtime, be back at this time. Like these are things that like, graduating college and doing this was like, oh shit, like, okay. Like, I can't wear sneakers here, or like, we got to be back exactly in an hour, or just some real simple work things. So it was just education, which I think is important. And then at that point in my life, simply having anything to put on my resume or in my portfolio was like so significant. And then also I would definitely exaggerate my involvement in things to just look a little bit better. Like no lies, but let's say like if I did the color ups for a shoe, I might just put the shoes in there with no words.
Nah.
If they ask me, I'd be like, oh yeah, I actually colored these. But in those early years, like you had to not seem like a nobody. And that's a really harsh way to put it. And that's not what I viewed myself as, nor is it how I view people that are at that stage in their career. But I just felt like I had to seem like I was a somebody, and I had to seem like I worked on something, and that a company or a person trusted me to like, you know, bring something to fruition. And then, because here's a perfect example, and I've said this in interviews, is the Cole Haan Lunar Grand, that Cole Haan Nike shoe.
Mm-hmm.
I was a part of the 3-person innovation team that worked on that shoe. This guy, Jeff Henderson, who I've mentioned probably in every interview I've ever done, he was the design director. He designed that shoe. I was a part of the team. I ended up doing like a boot on that tooling. I ended up, you know, like I was 100% a part of the creation of that shoe. But looking back, if I was 26 at the time, he was like a 40-year-old seasoned designer. He made that shoe, right? But he being just kind of aware of how important it was for me to attach myself to projects, get credit, all that kind of shit. I was like, hey, can I do like just a sketch rendering page of this shoe? And he was like, yeah, sure, go for it. So I got the Prismas out, started drawing, made a nice little sketch page, 1-pager, 11 by 17. And then I was like, can I put it on my blog? I had a blog at the time to like date it, right? And he was like, sure. And then Hypebeast picked it up. And then now they're like, Salehe Bembury is a part of this like thing. And then I became very closely attached to that shoe, if not some people thinking I designed it. And I had no fucking problem with that because I was on a mission, a way bigger mission. Like I didn't need credit for that, but that's what I knew would help me maybe get to that next step. That would improve my Google page of like, this next prospective employer is potentially thinking about hiring me. Let me Google him. Oh man, Cole Haan Lunar Grand, they're owned by Nike now. Okay, now it feels like my portfolio resume and just like my person as a designer is like improving. And yeah, and then I just kind of realized that at the end of the day, we are our Google pages, we are our LinkedIn's and our resumes and portfolios. So I was just hyper focused on adding to those things and hoping that, you know, like it was Payless, but then I was hoping the next one was Nike. I was hoping the next one was a name that my friends would think was cooler, would yield me more money. But really it was more about learning, adding to the portfolio and hopefully getting a little bit more money at the next gig.
Cool. So I just want to make sure I'm working on a timeline, right? So you went from Payless and you went straight to Cole Haan, or is it somewhere in between there?
So what did I do? So it's so funny. I'm giving a lot more transparency in these conversations because so after Payless, I worked at this brand called Fortune Footwear, which was like a licensed brand. So Steve Madden or Tina Knowles, Beyonce's mom had a brand, BB, brands like that. They would hire this company, Fortune Footwear, to design shoes. I was there after Payless, but again, in an effort to like design my story, I never included that in the resume, if you will, just because it didn't seem shiny, right? Mm-hmm. There are things that I've left out, minor things like the smaller brands that I like made ends meet with after Yeezy that just didn't feel like sexy as a part of the story. I've left them out. Now I don't really care. So yeah, there was this brand, Fortune Footwear. It was a job. But I was there for like a couple months because right during that time, Dame Dash opened up DD 172 in Tribeca, which was very close to where I live. And I started working there. I started going over there during lunchtime, and then I started like working there. And I don't even speak about that too much because it really wasn't too much a part of the footwear path. I think it was just gotten to like being around famous people and maybe getting to work on things that like people couldn't know about until they were out. So, you know, sometimes getting off of the path is fine as long as you're still learning, I guess. Yeah.
Okay. So it's funny because like the reason I say it is because at different points. So my mom, big Payless shopper, big Payless shopper. The smell of a Payless store is like stored in my brain. Like I could just remember walking to those stores and getting like some church shoes or like just getting like some like everyday sneakers. So like Payless wasn't like, you know, you got ragged on. I'm like, sorry to say, but like my homies would be like, oh, you got some Payless shoes on? It's like, dang, mom's had to buy these. She had to. So Payless, I've worked at Steve Madden for multiple years. Before I graduated college, I thought I was going to work for some bank. I thought I was going into banking. Did not happen. But I used to wear Cole Haans a lot. I had 3 pairs, and that was like the shoe that made you feel like astute. Like you had the Cole Haans with the nice suit on, tailored. Maybe you got like a nice tie on. I'm very interested because I saw this in the list of brands or companies that you've worked for. I love the brand Gourmet. I rock Gourmets for a solid year. I'm actually going to show a very goofy picture of myself real quick, just to like show like this is a goofy picture of myself, but like the Gourmet, yeah. This is like back in 2016.
I remember those. You gotta throw it in there. You're gonna put that clip in the interview?
Yeah. So you worked at Gourmet, and then
no, I never worked.
Okay.
Yeah, I worked at Greats, but
okay.
I worked at Greats, but John Buscemi owned Gourmet, so maybe that was the confusion.
Okay, got you.
So then, go for it. No, go.
No, you're good.
Oh no, I was just gonna say, I mean, Gourmet as a brand was just dope because I think during that period of time we were so conditioned by like the top 5 sneaker brands to see an independent brand just pop out of nowhere, disrupt immediately by like bootlegging Jordans and then making cool silhouettes. I think at that time, like as a people, we didn't realize that was possible. We were like, wait a minute, like people can make shoes? We thought it was like these huge corporations. So I think if anything, that was just a really eye-opening moment because it really was like they were almost promoting like entrepreneurship over like sneakers, it was educational. It's funny, I joke that with these interviews and I need to have my LinkedIn handy because I've been to so many places and I couldn't tell you the year. I'd be mixing shit. But let's talk about the more significant moments. We don't need to hit every step because there was a lot of bullshit in there. But I mean, more recently, I guess to give you a Yeezy transition story is around the time of Greats, I had just done this design charrette with this brand called United Nude. They flew out a bunch of designers, like 5 or 6 from around the world to just get some design inspiration, help, whatever you call it. They make some really forward footwear. I think now might be the time to throw in a United Nude shoe, like right there. So people can see like how cool their stuff is. And so getting to do some work on that brand, I had some cool stuff in my portfolio. And then I was meeting with Jeff Henderson, who I would consider to be some kind of quasi mentor for me. And every 3 to 4 months, we would have lunch and I would vent and he would share stories and he would give advice. And he mentioned that he was working for Kanye. And I was like, holy shit, because this was at a time that he was like a unicorn. And so he was like, Kanye needs someone to move out to LA. He didn't want to do it. And he knew that I would probably be interested. So I sent over some work. It took about 6 months. Then I ended up moving out to Los Angeles. And then I worked for Yeezy for about a little over a year. A both educational experience, core memory experience, I would say conversation for a different podcast. But at the end of the day, I do know that I view that job as like a portal, like different like jobs, different stops in your career do different things for you. Some stops keep you stagnant. It's almost like just lateral movement. Like you're not actually growing or evolving. You're just kind of going to this place, brainwashed 9 to 5, collecting your paycheck and you're leaving. You're not learning. You're not happy. You're not contributing to your portfolio or contributing to the company. It's just like, you're almost like frozen in time. And then some jobs take you backwards. Maybe it's financially take you backwards. Maybe because it's such a toxic work environment, you now assume some of these things. And then some jobs propel you. And that job, I believe, was like a portal. So it was like propulsion times 100 because that allowed me to jump into high fashion. And traditionally, high fashion brands don't really pluck from the pool of, I don't even know, sportswear designers. I don't know what you would call like non-high fashion designers. I'm not sure what our title would be. Normally that does not happen. But working with Kanye, who was very much so viewed at the time as like this fashion god, and anyone that was in proximity to him was was almost virtually like knighted by him, and then you assumed some of the special sauce, and that, or at least that's how you were viewed. And I think that's actually a very real thing if you look at the alumni of people that have come from him and what their work has turned into. Yeah, so through working at Yeezy, even though there's like this, I can share my whole how I got my Versace job story. Being from Kanye is what allowed me to make that like teleportation like leap into high fashion. Along with my talent and my go get him attitude and whatever else, but that was huge for it for sure.
Yeah, and I think the aspect of you of not doing many podcasts and like just hearing the ones that I hear or like I've heard is dope to hear that like people would think of Versace up here and they would think that they would need like the most decorated and the most glamorous resume to even get to that point or even get like their way through the door. And like hearing your story is dope because you just like you're going after that next one. So like it's legit like a ladder. Like, I mean, I wouldn't say Payless is like terrible, but it's a great company. It was around for a while, but like it's a legit ladder from where you started to where you are. And I think that's like an inspirational thing for people who are like in this era where it's kind of clustered. It's kind of inspirational to see like you can just, you know, you stay at it, you chip away at it. It doesn't need to be like a great leap into that next thing. Yeah. And also,
oh no, go.
And I feel like also it's like it shows that each step you bring something into that next position. So like you didn't have all the information.
No, I didn't have all the information at all. Like one of the chapters of my book is called Fake It Till You Make It. I think faking it till you make it is extremely important because now we have the answers under our thumbs, right? So if someone asks you, can you do this? Say yes, then go do it. Go do a shitload of research after that to back up the fact that you just lied to them. You know, and then also, I think there was a perfect storm happening at that time because there was something that I was speaking to a friend about as well called the Virgil effect. The high fashion industry had not seen a black man become the creative director of a house and do what he did. And so now there were for sure other houses being like, damn, like maybe there's some other of those Kanye guys that can like help us do things. And in some cases that's happened with Matthew Williams or Samuel Ross or whoever. So, I think that position, I don't want to take anything away from my talent and my portfolio and some of the more like personal things that allowed me to get that job. But I think it was also a perfect storm of a Virgil effect and the fact that I came from Kanye and all of those things definitely helped me jump into that space that doesn't normally pick from our garden. That was a bar.
Now, I don't want you to necessarily explain the whole Versace situation, but I am interested just from the pieces I've heard about that story, creating the chain reaction. Now, personally, Versace was always out of my way because my mom was shopping at Marshall's discounts. So like to own a pair of Versace sneakers was just out of sight, out of mind type thing. But how do you get like, was that idea to create that shoe already there? Or were you like I just want to like get into your head about when you were designing that shoe, like what was the thought process? Because you look at it now and it's like, what is that? Like, it's like, especially for that time, it was probably like, dude, this is crazy. So I just want to get into more like the design aspect of what you were thinking.
Yeah. So yeah, after that whole story of getting the job, the first task is to back up my words. And you could even argue that with that, I was doing a kind of a fake it till you make it. They were like, can you make us the next great fashion shoe? And I was like, yeah. You know what I mean? So, so then from there, it really was about, I think it was about balance. So it was like, I have to speak to three audiences: the existing Versace consumer, the sneaker consumer, and then the culture, the people that determine that it's cool. And then I have to make sure that that balance and conversation is executed on a level where each party feels it's authentic. And so first, the Versace audience. That's like, okay, how do I maintain brand identity and DNA without being too overt with it? But at the same time, that audience is like, okay, like this is a Versace shoe. I understand that this is like heritage Versace and he has honored the brand. Now going to the sneaker consumer. A lot of fashion houses, and this has changed over the years, didn't take the sneaker business very seriously and also didn't really respect shape. So A lot of things would be like okay designs, but the shape would be horrible, or a lot of toe pitch or bulbous toes. Composition would just be off, and then the shoe would be horrible. Or they just wouldn't take it seriously as a business, as the consumer or a business. And what they made was, you could tell, was just like mailed in. And so I had to create a sneaker that the sneaker audience was like, whoa, this is interesting. I'm maybe seeing some traditional DNA cues of just like the sneakers that they're used to. And it feels authentic to just the sneaker culture. And then the culture was more about, how can I make this feel authentic to the culture? And the culture lives on a spectrum. So I'm not necessarily speaking about any group of people, but there is this intangible group that does deem something cool and makes it a part of a uniform. So then that was more like a seeding initiative of like, okay, like let me link with the people that I do know. Let me see who their friends are. I end up meeting 2 Chainz. He's coming to the show. And so now this is feeling like there's some familiar fibers in the cloth of the shoe of like, okay, I'm like checking off these 3 boxes of like heritage, what's the second one? Heritage, sneaker authenticity, and then like cool. And then with doing all those things, the chain reaction was born. And then to put it more simply is I was trying to create a shoe to go at the Triple S, because the Triple S was basically the big bad wolf at the time, the Balenciaga sneaker.
Okay.
Yeah, and that was really just owning the sneaker market. That and maybe the Dior B22, maybe you could like throw them there. And so I was like, okay, like I have to compete with these shoes. And then there was like a Gucci shoe. I forget what it was called. It's called the, I forget it. There was a Gucci shoe. They had like big logos on the side. And then there was the Prada Cloud Bust. And those were like the competitors at the time. And so I basically, I just told you the like sophisticated version of what I did. But at the end of the day, I was just going after those shoes, getting at those shoes. I knew they were going to be sitting next to them, similar consumer. How can I, I grew up playing hoops. So like, it's competition for me. How can I go at these shoes, but at the same time, not make the consumer think that I'm going at these shoes? And how can I still be as Versace as fuck, but at the same time, it's a chunky outsole period. So like, I got to live in this space. So it really was about balance.
So I'm interested, you being a person of color going to Versace, was there any pushback with like, did you like, because like what you were doing was basically new and it was coming from somebody that may be deemed like from the outside. So like, was there major pushback? Like, because I think about 2 Chainz, I don't necessarily picture him before then being at a runway or being in a Versace house. So like, was there major pushback when you were like designing those shoes and like showing people?
Well, I think I got a little bit of education from the Cole Haan Lunar Grand experience, because Jeff Henderson was basically sent into Cole Haan by Nike to disrupt, use innovation, use all the technology that Nike had, that Cole Haan had access to because they were owned by them. During that period of time, Jeff Henderson, also being a Black man in a primarily white environment, America, but a white environment, I got to have a first row seat to seeing him try to basically inject this really disruptive product into a very traditional, like dress shoe brand, Oxford brand. There was a little diversity, but it was essentially a white office. And so getting to just view how he like worked those rooms and those meetings, and even the amount of pushback that shoe had, and how he got people to understand that if we checked all the boxes of like a serious shoe and it's comfortable and it has, brogues and whatever else the boxes we had to check were, then we did our jobs. And I saw him, I got to like witness that, the uncomfortableness that it created, and then the unspoken uncomfortableness that maybe a little bit could have been fueled potentially by race, but there was also a really uncomfortable product. So it was all these things. So now me, I don't know how many years later, 6, 7 years later, I'm in Milan having to do the same thing. I was a little bit more familiar with how that could go, but then also I reported directly to Donatella. So what I have learned in my career is if you report to the top, any obstacle is resolved.
Yeah.
At the same time, you don't want to like pull out that sword all the time, because people management is a big part of this as well. So it's about, at the end of the day, it's about collaboration, identifying your allies, and also potentially your obstacles or enemies, and navigating as such.
Yeah.
So I tried to put that in a way. So I mean, you know, I'm trying to choose my words carefully because I don't want to come off away, but yeah, I was I think I may have been the only in the Milan office. I think I was probably the only Black person, one a few Americans. I'm straight as well. So I was a minority, and I think being a minority in any environment can create obstacles, but on the whole, like my experience there was very positive. Donatella took amazing care of me. I had a lot of success there, and the majority of my life, I've been a true minority in wherever I am. So I think I'm good at navigating that dynamic.
Would you relate, just because I grew up in the Bay Area,
Mhm.
and like Bay Area, very diverse. Would you relate something like that comfortability around multiple different like people from different backgrounds, being that you grew up in New York? Just a random question.
Yeah, I think I've never really identified the source of it. I think maybe it could actually be New York, but I have always thought that I have a tool of being able to communicate and align with a myriad of different people, which most people I don't think can. I think most people know versions of themselves, and I am really just fascinated by humans. And so I think once you find that bridge of communication, it's just I really enjoy communicating and conversation and learning. That is why my brand is called Sponge. It's constantly about absorption.
Yeah, I was watching the Joe Budden one. They were like, when you gave the reason why you call it Sponge, it was like, oh, let's go to this earthy dude again.
Yeah, it's funny. That was almost like 3 years ago, and I'm about to go back there in like 2 weeks. So it's gonna be funny to see how the conversation changes.
That's what's up.
Yeah.
So now we know Versace, after Versace, that is when you go more into that freelance realm, right?
So at Versace, that I guess maybe transition was, I learned a lot about contracts at Versace. To some, contracts are simply the dollar amount and what time you have to be there. But at Versace, the contracts got longer and they got more specific, and it wasn't just about my salary, but it was about how I traveled. It was about the way in which I traveled, the hotels I stayed at. Every detail of the relationship was in writing, and both sides had to agree. And there were negotiation periods that could take up to a month, if not longer. And so in this education, there was one contract negotiation period where I think the money wasn't where we wanted it to be. And then my lawyer proposed allowing me to do collaborations, or 2 collaborations, I think it was, which is usually, it's pretty unorthodox because usually any designer that's collaborating doesn't work at a brand full time. They're usually an independent designer, but he proposed this and they were down. And this was now money that would supplement the money that I felt like I should be making there. And so those first 2 collaborations were New Balance and Anta, and both offering me different things, both financially and just like opportunity wise. And I didn't really ever want to be a designer, like an independent designer. I didn't want strangers to be wearing my name. Maybe that relates back to our earlier conversation. I always just consider myself a really good hired assassin for a company. Like, I do that very well. But then all of a sudden now, like through this contract negotiation, I'm now collaborating with New Balance and Anta. And then, oh shit, they do real well / sell out. And now I'm learning I have an audience, and people will buy things because it has my name on it. And I didn't really realize this. I had friends tell me, like, in the past, like, yo, you could probably go independent. And I was like, nah. But to now have proof of concept while still having the safety blanket of a job at Versace and getting a paycheck, now I've gotten to dip my toe in the water. The money that I can make off of these collaborations is more than I can make in a year of Versace. And so now I have an important decision to make.
I thought that was going to lead up with.
Oh, I knew
the way it ended, I was like, oh, he's about to say something.
You keep going, but I didn't want to be too long-winded.
I have
an important decision to make, and that's essentially stay at this cushy Versace job or like step into entrepreneurship, which is intimidating and like it's almost starting fresh. And so I chose the latter, and what was initially somewhat intimidating now is a well-oiled machine, and I have a team and I have an audience and I have demand. So I figured it out, but in the beginning it was definitely scary.
Yeah, I think something I just want to ask, just like on a very a relatable sense. It's like through all the jobs you've worked, what would you say is like that determining factor where it's like maybe I need to like leave from this company? Because I feel like some people, like my mom, for example, if I told her I was going to work for Versace, you better keep that job. You know, they don't come around often. So it's like for somebody that may be in the same position, like what would you tell them? Like when is a great time to exit from something and start a new chapter?
I've always been told, and I don't know if this necessarily applies to everyone, but I've always been told you should kind of always be looking for your next job. And that's not to say that you're looking for the next job that you're going to take, but it's really more about just like staying kind of like active, so that you're not put in a position where you don't have a job and then you're looking for a job. Because I've been in that limbo a few times, whether I quit something or got fired, and that's a scary place to be. I've also been on unemployment, and so yeah, just kind of just like keeping the muscle loose, and like building your network. These are all really important things. And even with the Versace transition to maybe being an independent designer, I was never really in limbo because I still was at my Versace job and I still got a paycheck every 2 weeks. So I did it in a very comfortable way, because I really envy people that just drop everything and they're like, all right, I'm going to like go, head first into this independence opportunity. And sometimes they fail and sometimes they succeed. But that to me is really what deserves applause, because there's such a high failure rate. If I failed, I still had an amazing job. I still had a job I was the VP of footwear or men's footwear at Versace. Like that's a great plan B, So I think my transition was slightly more cushy.
That's a hell of a plan B. that's some people's plan A.
Yeah.
Nah, that's what's up. So now you have transitioned to doing collabs with different brands, but also starting your own thing. So is the book, going back to I Make Shoes, is the book gonna really cover like the entire story of like when you started designing sneakers? Like what's kind of like the blueprint for the book, you would say?
You know what? I have the cover. I don't have the full. One second. So this is the book.
That's a hard picture, by the way.
Thank you very much. It was painted by Delphin Finley. It's a painting. I don't know if you can tell.
Oh, it's a painting.
It's a painting, and published by Rizzoli, designed by Playlab. The table of contents is on the back. It's a chronological journey of my career. There is actually no Payless chapter, simply because I really don't have anything from the Payless years, because representative of where I was at in my career, I wasn't like, damn, let me take a picture of this because it's probably going to end up. I was just like happy to get a task to complete. So there's no Payless, but it's everything else, chronological order. So you see me in the last 15 years before I had my uniform or could dress. So some of the pictures are pretty hilarious. And basically it's every stop that we've kind of discussed or haven't discussed. And every stop has a chapter of, where I was at that step in my career. Like there's a fake it till you make it. I believe that's Montclair, because they were like, can you make a high fashion, ready to wear collection? And I was like, yeah. And then like I went and researched. And then there's another one called like Work with a Friend. That's the union chapter, when I collaborated with Chris Gibbs. And so each chapter starts with some perspective, and then there's a lot of images and sketches and moments. And what else? There's some writing from Bliss Foster, Brandon Jenkins, and Gian Delion. And then there's like a good 6-page conversation with Andre 3000.
Oh.
And I'm trying to think. That's about it. And so basically, you kind of started the conversation talking about this, is that you have known me for this or that. There's a lot of people that know me for one or two things. So to someone, I'm the Crocs guy or I'm the Yeezy guy, but there's so much in this book that I've touched. And I even had Chris Gibbs here the other day, who's both in the book and I've known for a while, and he didn't know I did half these things. So I think that's what I'm most excited about, is for my audience and this new audience to see that, hey, I've been in this game for a minute. I've been focused for a while. I am versatile. I have a signature. It's been consistent. And I think this will also just fuel the next however many years of my career that I continue to exercise my creativity. So I'm really just excited for that. And then also, I see it as just like a Bible for young creatives that are trying to figure out some of these questions that we're talking about of when to move on from a company, issues of self-value, like how to go about documenting my work or putting yourself out there, asking questions. I really felt that just even the story of how I got my job at Versace is such a checkmate story to anyone that doesn't believe in asking for what they want. Like I changed my entire life by asking, you know? And so people that are afraid to ask for these smaller things, it's like, what the fuck are you waiting for? Like life is the worst that can happen is no. There's this amazing Steve Jobs quote that I'm going to text you, or I'll get to Javi or whatever after this, so that maybe you could like put in this, because it's just really about him asking, and that people would always pick up the phone and whatever. You should clip it in here because you're going to stun a lot of people with what he says.
And I've never found anyone who said no or hung up the phone when I called. I just asked. And when people ask me, I try to be as responsive, to pay that debt of gratitude back. Most people never pick up the phone and call. Most people never ask. And that's what separates sometimes the people that do things from the people that just dream about them. You gotta act. And you've got to be willing to fail. You've got to be willing to crash and burn, with people on the phone, with starting a company, with whatever. If you're afraid of failing, you won't get very far.
Please don't let me forget. It's like a bar. But yeah, I just think, these things are like really important. So this book represents that. And there aren't many tools for young creatives to help them answer those kind of like weird, like there's a lot of tools that teach you how to design things or teach you how to like maybe like apply for a job, but there are a lot of these small like intangibles that exist in becoming a professional or trying to just take a step up in your space that I don't think are touched on too often. And I speak about those kinds of things here. So I'm excited for people to get the book.
Yeah. And I feel like a lot of those things are like nuanced. Like I was in a lot of clubs in college where like professionals would come and like kind of give us game, basically like, this is how you work a room, this is how you network. And like, I think about the people that I grew up in my area. I grew up in Richmond, California, where it's like that information is legit, like sealed away and not accessible to a lot of people. And I'm like, just information that I had just going into a club meeting, like, I'm like, this would help so many people back home if they just knew this is how you do it.
Yeah.
So I like that. I like that you touch on that in the book.
And then also simply, I'm listening. I'm just trying to find this video for you because I don't want to forget. Can we pause for 30 seconds so I can get the video?
This is my show.
Sure. No, fuck it. Let's just keep going and then I'll get it afterwards. But it's just like a really good bar about like
Steve Jobs.
It's Steve Jobs. Yeah.
Got you. I'm glad that we started talking about the book because you started to show like many glimpses of the books and the pages that's in it on your Instagram. And I was going to do this in a different order, but I think I just have to start out this way. These are selfish questions. These are questions that like these are questions that I've had for a very long time, just because like these are things that I consider grail shoes. So I'm going to show you 3 shoes, and I kind of just want you to like take me through the process of like how these even came about.
Gotcha.
So the first page that I saw, and I shared it on my story, these boots right here.
Hey, okay, I can't find this video. I'm back.
These boots to me is like, these will never leave my closet, no matter if they beat up. And I like the picture that you posted because like it had like plants growing out of it. It was the burnt sienna pair, which those are still on my watch list. Need those, but it's hard to find those, and people are asking ridiculous prices for those. But like the season 3 boot, can you walk me through the process it took to get to the final product for this one?
Yeah, so here's a story. So the Yeezy 350 V2 with the orange stripe on it, like the first one. So I remember when that sample came in and everyone was there. It was like the Adidas team, and there was like 2 people reporting it, and V was there, and I think Don C was there, and it was just a lot of people. Everyone was circled around myself and Kanye, and he was trying on the shoe. And I'm like sitting there nervous because I'm being filmed and just all these important people are there. And I'm just like happy to be there. And then he's trying it on, looking in the mirror. And then he takes it off and he sees like a red ribbon on the ground. It was just it was kind of a cluttered office, so there's just stuff kind of everywhere. There's just a red piece of trash ribbon on the ground. And he was like, Salehe, can you take that ribbon and pin it to the shoe on the side, like have the front of it go towards the toe and then have the back of it into the heel? And I'm like, okay. So I grabbed some pins, I'm pinning it into the shoe, making sure that none of the points are going in the shoe because I know he's going to put his foot back into it. So I pin it on in maybe 30 seconds. He puts the shoe back on. He's looking in the mirror and then he takes the shoe off and goes, new wave. And then everyone goes, starts clapping. And I was like, this is crazy. That was a piece of trash off the ground. From then on, all the 350s featured this stripe. And I was just, it was really fascinating because so many other brands live within all of these rules and of like the consumer and you can't do this or whatever. And just to see how raw of a creative moment that was, that ultimately ended up like being the aesthetic of this entire line of shoes was special. And that's why I felt like we were like creating a feeling because it was like art. It wasn't really like, oh, we're trying to serve a consumer or whatever. He felt like that ribbon needed to be on the shoe. Boom, it's on the shoe. And so that's kind of maybe what working there was like, I guess, to give an example.
That story, that's how, I mean, honestly, in other interviews where people who've worked with him directly say like it's a very unorthodox way of doing things, like, which, I mean, you could say that creates something different. I mean, he's definitely been someone who's pushed the bounds. So that's dope. That's dope to hear. This is something that's never leaving my closet. And I've had it for at least 5 years now.
Fire.
Next, this is a shoe that I said no matter what the resale price was, I was gonna buy these shoes.
Mm-hmm.
Water Be the Guide, 2002 R. This shoe, I literally I was living at home with my mom's. I just graduated college, and I was like legit dumbfounded. I don't understand the shoe, and I was like, I need this shoe. Like, I know these came after the orange pair, but it was something about this colorway that just captured my attention. So like, what was the thought process behind this shoe?
So I got to first tell the thought process behind Peace Be the Journey 2002 R for that to make sense. So New Balance wants to collaborate with me. I go to the office. They show me the line of maybe it was about 6 or 7 shoes I could choose from. I started asking how many people are collaborating on this one? How many people are collaborating on this one? Because I believe I probably could have done like a 990 or something. But for me, it was important to stand alone because I felt like with collaborations, when too many people work on the same shoe, they kind of get lost. So I wanted to work on just a shoe that no one else was working on. I got to get my charger 1 second. So I wanted to work on a shoe that no one else was working on. So I chose the 2002 R. The only other brand that was working on it, the only other brand that was working on it was This Is Never That. And I actually think that shoe never came out. So I might have been the only person to work on that shoe that year. And then from there, it was about storytelling. Let me just fix this. Boom. Why did this shit just zoom in on me?
Yeah, I don't
Notice that?
Yeah.
1 second. Hey, is it because I fucking, I don't know, man. What the fuck? Can't get I want my fit in this. Hold on, let me figure this shit out. Reframe. There we go. Okay, so
got that drip on.
Yeah, right. And so what was I saying? So then from there it became about how do I make this shoe feel different? Because with a color up exercise, if you simply color it up and give it a title, like sure, but if you tell a story and then your packaging and the shoe and everything else relates to that story, now the audience is going to feel like they're a part of a moment. Now they might feel like they're a part of a community. I remember, slightly unrelated, but whenever I first started traveling and I went to a place where people didn't really speak English, I would look for someone wearing Supreme because I would know there's a way higher chance that they spoke English, right? It's like community identifiers. So I was like, how can I make this feel like it's more than simply a color up? And so I had recently gone to Antelope Canyon. That was the inspiration. And then from there, I made the packaging about Antelope Canyon, and the hairy suede of the upper was meant to represent the sand or whatever it was. I do not remember. It's been a while now. And then the end was like the clouds, and the maroon was meant to represent like the wet sand and whatever. And so now when you see the shoe, you feel a moment. It's not like just an orange shoe. That's a moment, right? Like that's a community. And same for the packaging, and same for the orange moss that all the seating pairs came in. And so I was really like telling a story, like head to toe, like 360 story. And then that did so well. And then people loved the marketing so much and all that New Balance hit me very quickly after the release of that one. And they were like, you want to run it back on the exact same shoe. And so that's what War to Be the Guide was. And so it was like, okay, now we have to take the exact same shoe, color it up again, and create a completely different story. And so I had recently been to Havasu Falls, and I wanted the shoe to be inspired by that. And so there was partial shoe and packaging inspiration that came from Havasu Falls. And then there was a first episode of The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air that inspired that campaign. It had to do with like Jesse Williams hitting, crystal cups and glasses with silverware and making a beat, a complete nod to Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. And again, just to use humor as a vehicle to get people to remember. I'm very new on the scene at the time, so I'm like trying to be on my Old Spice shit of just doing some shit that makes people be like, what the fuck was that?
Yeah.
And then, from there, maybe I can slowly become more serious or plan things out better or whatever. But in this first moment is just about like getting people's attention because people don't know who I am, or at least that's how I see it.
So is there a rhyme or reason to the color palettes? Because you said you had recently just visited a waterfall and like Fresh Prince of Bel-Air was like, inspiration for that. But like whenever I see your shoes, the first thing that I notice is the color. I'm like, how do you even blend these colors together? Because like I can see a world where if someone else was to get this shoe and they try to do the same colors, they may not do it to where it works. But like every single shoe, the color blends well together. So like, what's the theory behind that?
I just think there's beauty within like color juxtaposition, and I appreciate soft brights. My work was described as designs that utilize soft brights. You can use pink, but there's like 1,000 pinks, you know what I mean? And so no one can just use like the Crayola pink and then it just looks like bubblegum. Or you could use pink that has some orange in it that's a little bit more like faded or dull. And it's going to give you a different feeling. And so I have done not much color study or theory, but I definitely am familiar with the feelings that colors give me. And so I just use colors that make me feel good. And the process really isn't that drawn out. I'm usually just clicking around and kind of like talking my head like that. And so, yeah, I just think color is a great vehicle, again, to make people feel. And I try to exercise it without being like too overt or too mismatchy or whatever. I just think it's about cohesion. It's about executing taste. Taste is rare. I believe I have some, and I'm just trying to put that all over my work.
Yeah. And before I move on to the last one, I think I have to give credit where credit is due, because you've done it not only once, but you've done it like 10x now at this point. Like you have done it multiple times. The New Balance 1000, that yellow bottom with the purple gradient, that's going to be another shoe that I'm going to have to get. Like, I have, like, the fact that you can keep doing this to where, like, because one, people are working for their money and times are getting harder. People are trying to, like, penny pinch. To continue to make a shoe where it's like, I got to get that shoe. I got to give credit where credit's due, because it's insane. I haven't seen a run like this in a while.
Thank you. It's funny hearing it called a run because when you think of a run, you think of like an athlete that eventually is going to expire. And I think what's nice about design is that you really don't have to retire if you stay like curious and passionate. So I'm hoping this isn't a run. I hope I'm just like a fucking like a dedicated, consistent creative that's just gonna keep people engaged. And I think that'll be achieved by creating multiple arms to the operation and existing at many different levels.
Last shoe. This one, I don't know if you checked the resale price for these. Insane. The 1906R Heat Be Hot pack. First of all, the pack itself, fire. But like this individual pair, I was like blown away again. I was like, this shoe needs to be in my closet. Absolutely. I actually did a Kloth Talk when I initially started doing virtual Kloth Talks. I had this guy on that was from Canada, and this is one of the articles that we covered when it was coming out. These are crazy. And again, I think it's the colorway. It's like, how did you, like, what was the thought process behind this pack that you dropped?
So I think what's really fascinating is I remember being a witness to what Dimna did at Balenciaga, where all of the sneakers that they created was the result of research. They researched a specific period of time in the 90s, maybe let's call it like Princess Diana era, where people were wearing a certain type of shoe. Maybe it's Asics, maybe it's Saucony. Some people were tying them real tight, so like other forms were coming out of them. And it seems, and this is speculation, but it seems like they really did a study of that period of time, and then what they created was the result of that. So within my team, we just did a bunch of studying on color execution and juxtaposition and applications from different periods of time. And this was also during a period of time where I wasn't trying to be so literal about being like, damn, like look at that mountain that will now create this shoe so directly. Like Antelope Canyon and Havasu Falls or Peace Be the Journey and War to Be the Guide were very direct, literal representations of the places. But then if you fast forward to like Fog Be the Cloud, that shoe don't look like no cloud to me, right? But it still embodies the feeling of the campaign and the packaging and the energy of that environment. So you're still telling a story, but it's maybe, if I could call it anything, maybe more sophisticated.
Yeah. Just up-to-date research. $700 resale. And then the metallic pack, $1,200.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, I remember when I first started having my name on shoes, the two things that were cool for me is like, one, wow, people are reselling my shoes. And then two, wow, people are bootlegging my shoes. Bootlegging is strangely an honor. I grew up in Tribeca next to Canal Street, so I feel like I have a very close relationship with bootlegging culture. But the first time I ever saw one of my shoes faked was very cool for me because, I mean, and Virgil said this, but if your shoe is working enough that someone else can make money off of it, it shows that it's really working, you know? So at the same time, there's other conversations about protecting your brand and and making sure that your brand equity isn't diluted and all that kind of stuff. But just being like a student of the game and a student of the culture, seeing fake versions of my work, of my brain children on blankets on Canal Street and in China is like the highest honor because it shows that many audiences are not only enjoying it, but eating off of it as well.
Yeah. Do you remember what silhouette it was or what shoe it was?
I think it was a Chain Reaction. I think the Chain Reaction first bootleg one. Yeah.
That actually makes sense.
Yeah.
That actually makes sense. Okay. So bringing it back to the book, I mean, those are just like, I need an answer to those because again, just being a consumer of the good, when I saw the shoes initially, I was like, I think that's all I could do sometimes. I'm like, what am I looking at? Like it gets a reaction out of me every time. So I'm curious, like, are those sneakers or like, you know, is going to be a total embodiment of the work that you've done? Like, are these going to have like highlight moments too? That's going to be in the book that readers could pick up on?
What can I have highlight moments?
Like the Water Be the Guys or like, you know, the Heat Be Hots. Like, is each individual shoe per se going to get its own highlighted moment?
Every chapter ends with like maybe what I would call like an econ page of everything I created for that brand on a white page, so people that are like uninformed can see. And there's actually a few unseen samples on there as well. But one of the most difficult things about this book, given that it's only 368 pages, is the editing that I had to do. In a perfect world, I would have thought that like each shoe that I did would get like 3 to 5 pages and I could share all of the celebrities and moments and campaign images, but unfortunately that wasn't the case. And so if you think 368 pages and I think it's 17 or 18 different moments and brands, now there's a massive edit that has to happen. And that was probably the saddest part about creating this book, was just simply having to get rid of so many images that I was sure were going to get like full bleeds, but everything can't get a full bleed because now you're taking up 2 pages, right? So yeah, I mean, there's going to be a representation of pretty much everything I've worked on in the book, but I don't know, maybe if you're like in your case, Water Be the Guide fan, you might be sad because there's only like one image. And I feel like my campaigns kind of got better with time. So I think maybe I gave a little bit more representation of more recent campaigns, but no, for sure. There's definitely Piece of the Journey, that Water Be the Guide and everything else.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I won't be too sad because I have them. I'm not letting them, but I could see someone who may potentially not have them may feel away, but I'm good. I got the shoe. So let's say the book has dropped. readers have got to the last page of the book. You know, some people got work, they may read it in different sections. So what do you want once people reach that last page? What do you want people to be left with? Like, what is like what was the goal for the book, would you say?
And now maybe we should just give consumer transparency, because I'm realizing at the beginning of this conversation, I'm like, it's going to release October 14th. And we're like, the book is dropped, but whatever. This is that real.
Just a real, yeah.
So anyway, so wait, what was your question? I'm sorry, repeat it.
So like, you know, people have got the book by now, and they've reached the last page. What would you say, being the person that this is your work, what do you want readers to be left with? Like, what was the goal going into making this book?
This whole sneaker thing started off as niche, and now it's a little bit more mass, but it's still pretty niche. And there aren't that many books that honor this space and give a blueprint to how to potentially navigate this space. And I want this, and I want this book to be, and I know this book is one of those books. So if I was either a teenager or starting out my career in design, like, you all know, if you're in this space as a fan of sneakers or whatever, there's only like 15 books that are truly honoring what has taken place in the last like three decades of sneakers and of hype. And this book is one of them. And so I want this book to be an educational tool for the young designer, the curious voyeur, or anyone in between. I want this book to show how, if you stay focused and you stay on a certain path and you don't necessarily get too concerned with the brands that you're at all times, because it's about learning, and it's about simply making money, and it's about adding to your portfolio so that when that opportunity knocks on your door, you're fucking ready. It's about making mistakes earlier in your career. And I think some of those are even apparent in this book, because there are some brands that I am so happy I did not make the mistakes at, and I made the mistakes earlier in my career, so that by the time I got to a Yeezy, I knew how to act when Kanye was in the room, or when I got to a Versace, I knew how to act when riding in a car with Donatella Versace. It's about learning. It's about collecting tools so that when those opportunities occur, you have them, or you can fake it till you make it, until you can look them up after the fact.
So I have two more questions. One out of curiosity and one leading up to what you just said, because I feel like I always hear people say they learn more from their mistakes than they do like in their successes. Oh, yeah. Words are made up. Yeah. Like, so how would you take that? Like, do you think you've learned more from like the failures, or have you learned more just like succeeding for it? I guess like it's a weird way to phrase it, but that's the only way I could think of it right now.
I think they both offer different things, and I don't know if the absorption of knowledge happens immediately. There are some things that, like, I was dealing with Kanye or working at Versace, that I didn't realize I was learning in the moment, but then looking back on it, I was like, holy shit, like that was educational. And I think even just that ribbon story, the trash becoming like a in cement part of that shoe, just shows you how like some of the rules that we're conditioned to follow don't exist. And coincidentally enough, that same day or the day before, David Bowie died. And so he also was known to have like that stripe on his face. So those ended up, I think the unofficial name of those were called the Bowies, because they also had the red stripe. So yeah, just like learning that a lot of the things we're taught aren't necessarily true, and then absorbing new information and navigating how to make it work for you. This is all just a video game, and we all have different, cheat codes and button combinations that work, but they don't work for everyone. And so it's figuring out like if you're AB or what, and then you can share that AB information with the homie over here, but that button combination may not work for him. So it's about just figuring out what button combinations work for you.
I'm telling you, I be forgetting that I'm the host here. I'm like just trying to soak in all the here. I'm listening. I'm like, okay, he's about to stop talking. Nah, that's dope, bro. And the other question that I have for you was, do you feel like this period that you're living in now, having more creative freedom with with your brand Sponge, do you feel like this was like a second wind almost? Because like you're creating so long for so many different companies, but now you're like, this is your thing and you don't have to necessarily answer to someone else per se.
But what's the question though? Is it like you're saying?
So do you feel like you have like a what's like? Is it like a happier point in time for designing now, given that you have the creative freedom to do what you want?
I'm always just trying to stay above water. I know maybe to the outside audience, it's like, man, he's just soaring in the clouds, but I am treading. And, you know, when projects release, like maybe I get a little bit more strength to tread a little longer, but I think we're all treading. So, this transition is equally as exciting as it is scary. And because it's just really stepping into a new space. The analogy I've made is when you're a freshman in high school, you don't really matter. And then you become a senior in high school and now you're the shit. You got a little money, you might have a car, right? You like run things, but then you become a freshman in college and you no longer matter again. And maybe you're taking some of those learnings with you, but you're back to square one and you got to build yourself back up. And then you become a senior in college and you're running shit again. And like everyone thinks you're cool and whatever, but then you enter the real world and guess what? You don't matter again. And so I think that transition period is kind of how I would describe it. I think the don't matter again thing is harsh because you are still bringing those tools and those learnings and your portfolio and whatever else to this new situation. So I'm coming with a really big bag of things, but it's for sure it's a vulnerable position to be starting a completely new initiative. But I'm confident and I have an amazing team. And I have a blueprint to success that's been working for the past few years. So I'm just going to keep following that.
Man, this is dope. This is so dope, bro. One, I want to say thank you, bro. This was a pleasure to sit down and like being a consumer of the goods that you've been putting out. Like, this is dope just to like, it's like a full circle moment. I mentioned this on like 2 episodes ago. If I look directly to this side right here, there's a list of names of people that I want on my podcast. And your name is literally right there. It's been right there since I do it at the end of the year. So going into January, I'll write things down I want for myself or like, you know, goals and aspirations. And like Salehe Bembury is right there. Like, and it's been like that for like 10 months.
I am honored. And now I also challenge you, show the list.
Oh yeah. I'll do it.
Put it into the universe.
J Tips, Joe Freshgood, the Chris, I don't know how to say his last name, so I'm not gonna like butcher it, but the dude that owns Blackstock and Weber.
Oh, I'm not familiar with him.
Wisdom. I mean, he's the biggest fashion men's content creator there is, and Tremaine Emery, because I love Denim Tears.
Bro, reach out to them, man. That's why we're sitting here.
But it's been truly a pleasure. I can't wait to actually read the book because right next to my, I don't know if you can see it right here.
Another Bible.
No, literally. So right next to this book will be the book that you put out, and I'll like. It's just dope consuming content from people who actually give a fuck. And I feel like sometimes, again, we mentioned this earlier, but like with some collabs and some people that's out there, I won't mention names, but you can just tell it like there's no love given to it. And I feel like that's why some people even fall out of love of like loving sneakers because it's like so saturated. So like people like Virgil, of course, revolutionary. But I definitely consider you one of like the revolutionaries in sneakers right now that's changing the game. Absolutely. And I see people copying the flow.
Yeah, but unfortunately, I have to keep my opinions on those kinds of things to myself. But I grew up hooping, and you know, when you were playing ball and you saw someone with a trash jump shot, you'd be like, "Yo, that's a trash jump shot." So now, like, you know, I have my opinions, but I keep them on myself. And I think, if anything, I'm appreciative to be a part of this because I was a consumer of it for so long, and so now it's still rather surreal that, you know, I got this whole like case of my designs and art and vinyls and a lot of the people I used to look up to and still do. But now a lot of those people have gone from being these like legends I look up to my peers. And so I'm just appreciative to exist in the same space and time period.
Nah, most def. Again, it's been dope. This is gonna be one of my favorite. For sure. This is going to be one of my favorite episodes ever created. It's also just crazy. It's something like an idea that came to me randomly when I was like because my YouTube started off as simply sneaker reviews, but it's like I can't keep buying sneakers. I'm gonna go broke. It's like I had to find something to talk about other than just sneakers when it was like just trending topics when it came to sneakers and streetwear. To see it transition now, and like I'm having guests like you or like other people that I consider to be like, you know, culture shifters, if that's a word, be on here is an honor for sure.
But bro, mark my words, in 6 months, if not less time, Foot Locker or a brand is going to be hitting you up to like sponsor you or have you come out and talk to whoever else. And I think I'm really fascinated with just like how, you know, there's micro influencers. I believe there are micro platforms, but they now matter. Like you'll see Will Smith on the street talking to the like, why are you confident guy, right? You'd never see that ago, right? But now the playing field has leveled, and I think platforms on all different sizes now matter because you're reaching different audiences. So, you know, I feel weird sometimes sharing the same stories that I know I just shared like 2 days ago on another podcast, but it's a different audience. So I try to share them with the same amount of motivation and interest.
It's all good. I think it's also like, it's like, I think streaming and like everyone getting podcast equipment definitely just shifted the culture.
Yeah, but
like,
the people that care and the people that execute properly are gonna like race to the top.
Yeah. But hey, Foot Locker though, tap in with your boy.
And if you continue to like curate your guests and like, you know, like get some like little, I don't know, I haven't seen your shit, but if you got the graphics on the bottom and get the photos coming in and just, you know, make it a consistent presentation for everyone, and then people pay attention.
Most def.
Yeah.
But without further ado, like I always do, I will catch y'all on that next one.
Am I supposed to do something?
That actually is perfect. That is perfect.
But I love the way you work it. Hey, I love the way you work it for me.